Since 2003, this is the Sports Source, East Tennessee's #1 sports talk show.
Presented by Junk Be Gone, Phoenix Conversions.
With your host, John Pennington. The Sports Source starts now.
Good Sunday morning. Welcome into the Sports Source. We're happy to have you. For the next 90 minutes, we're going to be breaking down Tennessee's 35-12 win over Missouri, their 8th straight victory, their 6th straight SEC win. A lot of good stuff to talk about today, and we'll do it. Let's get right into it. First segment of this program is brought to you by our friends at Junk Be Gone. From junk removal to do-it-yourself dumpster rentals, Junk Be Gone is the team to call. Good local company, whether it's your home or your office. They do all kinds of work for local businesses as well, including paper shredding. If you've got office equipment that needs to be moved out, you just point and their two-man team pick it up and carry it out for you. Junk Be Gone. I use them myself. I do it every year. JunkBeGone.biz to learn more. All right, let's welcome in the first round of panelists. Right here, former VFL Will Overstreet. Thank you, Will.
Thanks.
From WNML AM and FM, right there, Jimmy Himes. Jimmy Himes, thanks for being here. Thank you. Chuck Cavaleris, the host of the Chucky C-Note Casino. Looking a little light in the wallet this week. Chuck,
oh, we're doing fine, John. Don't worry about us, man.
Casino will be okay in the end. All right. Let's start. So much talk in the offseason was geared toward the offensive line. A lot of people were anticipating the arrival of Cade Mays. You didn't get that against South Carolina. You got it yesterday. Maybe not the best test you're going to get all year in terms of Missouri. At the same time, your thoughts on the offensive line and the way they played yesterday?
I think the one people you could ask about how they played yesterday would be Missouri, because I guarantee those guys are icing their bodies all the way around. That was a tough game, and that was a grinder game that set the attitude. I thought last year this team ended well, that the offensive line had set an attitude that they were going to be more physical, they were going to be a little nasty, a little mean, and I think that yesterday that kind of showed that attitude trying to build it back. South Carolina, they came out in that first half, they didn't have that same attitude. It looked like, hey, we weren't the same team. I thought they got that back yesterday, the meanness, a little bit of there. They put something on tape that if you're going to be in a defensive lineman against them this year, you're going to say, I'm going to have to strap it on for that game. We may win, I may be able to get something over on them, but they're going to get something too. It's going to be a long, hard-fought game. So congrats to those guys, because I thought they, showed what they can be. They've got a lot of steps and ways to go, but overall, that was a great thing to see.
I thought it was interesting that Jeremy Pruitt made the comment after the game about your improved run game, and he said, well, you have to call the run game to have a good running game. And I thought back to the first half of South Carolina. I thought the offensive line played really well. I thought at times it stretches. I thought they were dominant. I thought it was impressive that Tennessee went for those fourth downs and got all of them. They were 5 for 5 on 5 for 5 in the red zone. They were scoring touchdowns. I thought they played really well. And I thought another thing they did too, they pulled the tackles and did effective kick-out blocks, whether it was Cade Mays from the right side or Wanya Morris from the left side. Mays played 3 different positions on the line. I think he showed his versatility. I thought it was a very strong effort by the offensive line.
I thought Will was talking about meanness, aggressiveness. Mm-hmm. The 4th and 1 calls that they kept going for, I think that sent them a message.
Yep.
I mean, I
first
think that
possession.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's telling those guys that we're going to lean on you, so be ready. I think that's going to improve the attitude moving forward.
Yeah, I think they want those guys to take ownership of the offense. If it's not working, it's not on Garantano, it's not on Eric Gray, it's on you guys up front. And you've got to be the ones. You shouldn't put us in 3rd and long. We should always be 3rd and short. It's on you to make that happen.
It seemed like a lot of that yardage was between the hash marks to me. I mean, it seemed like it was lining up and going right at them. And there were several times it seemed like one of Tennessee's running backs was just tripped up or was one defender away from an even longer run. So when you've got the chance to have 2 100-yard rushers and you can dominate that way. Now, can you keep on relying on quarterback sneaks down on the goal line to be able to punch it in there? I mean, we'll see as the competition gets tougher. But no, you have to like that, and it had to be a huge emotional lift getting Cade Mays eligible. I thought that was a big factor in what happened.
There were a couple of times where he bullied somebody. I mean, he took a guy down. There was one situation on the outside where he took a guy down, looked at him on the ground for a second, and then jumped on top of him. So on that edge, which, you want that in your offensive lineman,
Yes, you do.
so long as the yellow laundry doesn't start flying.
Exactly.
But in terms of attitude, I think he brings it. I think people who followed him at Catholic know that. I think the folks who saw him at Georgia know that. Let's talk about some numbers with this offensive line. As we mentioned, 4 4th-and-1 conversions where they just kept going for it and getting it. Just 2 negative runs to the running backs on the season. None yesterday, only 2 against South Carolina. Through 2 games to only have 2 negative runs, you think back to what we were talking about, even in the Hurd and Kamara years, where those guys would have to make somebody miss in the backfield and then go for their own yardage. That's pretty impressive. The other comparison I thought, and it's apples to oranges, I know, different weeks, different games, but in week 1, Missouri only gave up 3 yards per rush to Alabama. You got 4.5 yards per rush against them yesterday. I think that's a positive. It wasn't all perfect now. Jeremy Pruitt did mention that he wasn't particularly thrilled with the pass protection. Mentioned that at halftime. Quarterback got hit a little too much in his opinion. I talked to Mike Stoll, VFL, yesterday. He said, well, a lot of that looked like guys playing at different levels, which you chalk some of that up to the fact that these guys haven't practiced a lot. They may not be in tip-top season shape yet because of all the practices they missed. The problem, though, for a defensive lineman, you're loving it if the offensive line is playing at different levels.
Oh, yeah. It gives you the gaps. I mean, that's what opens it up right for you. And that's, when a defensive end and tackle do what, are games where basically they're working together, how you win those is getting one guy separated from the other guy, and that creates the gaps. So they've got to clean that part up. That's definitely part of their game that especially, it's not going to be able to be like this every week when you start playing Alabama and Georgia. And those are going to have much better athletes that are coming after you at the quarterback. So they're going to have to figure this out, and that part's going to have to gel faster than it is right now for to be competitive. So they've got some work because the defensive linemen were also looking at that going, well, if we can just stop them and get to 3rd and long, they're going to watch that tape as a defensive end and go, I've got a shot to make some plays. So they've got to put that different tape on for this next week and improve in that area.
John, one of the things, too, with this COVID out there, I think the offensive line was hit harder than any position. I remember the time they canceled that scrimmage. They still practiced, but they canceled scrimmage. They couldn't scrimmage because they didn't have enough offensive linemen. They also reported yesterday, and I didn't know this, that Wanya Morris had only practiced 5 times. I knew he'd been out on a couple of occasions, but that's not very many practices. So they're looking at playing. That's one reason I think they played Cade Mays at 3 different positions, and they're moving people around. As Pruitt said, because of that, he doesn't think his offensive linemen are in great shape, and so he's mixing and matching and playing as many as he can at this point.
With Morris, didn't they say that he did serve 2 separate 14-day quarantines because of contract tracing? And I think you can tell, and a lot of teams aren't going to be in great shape. There was more standing around later in that half. And I think that was one of the things Pruitt standed out too. They weren't sustaining the blocks as well, but that's just part of it right now.
Tell you what, let's talk about Tennessee's win streaks right now. I mentioned them off the top of the show. I was going through the media guide yesterday, so if something's wrong in here that you guys know of, point something at me, throw something at me. 8 wins in a row, going back to 1998. That's just the second time that's happened. It happened, they won 11 straight games from 2015 to 2016. People forget that. That's hard to believe that Butch Jones had an 11-game win streak here. But this 8-game win streak's the longest since then. 6 straight SEC wins. They had a 7-game win streak in 2000-2001. Will, you were on those teams. Yeah. They did it again in 02-03. They did it in 2004 in one season, 15-16, 2019, 2020. And then no 3-0 start in the SEC since 1998. Haven't done it since the national championship year. Started 2-0 in 2001, then lost to Georgia. Started 2-0 in 2003, then lost to Auburn. Started 2-0 in 2016, and then lost that overtime thriller at Texas A&M. So they have an opportunity to share some ground with one of the best teams in Tennessee history if they can get to 3-0 with a win at Georgia next week. We've got a lot more to cover. I want to talk about Jim Chaney and the way he's controlling this offense. I want to talk about the secondary. Is it ready for Georgia and Alabama that's coming up? Come on back on the Sports Source.